And from FCDOT, we have Banaz Raouf, Grace Vaughn, and Nicole Machakwe. Banaz has a short presentation to run through, and so Banaz, if you're ready, you can begin the presentation.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting, and thank you all for joining us. Tonight, we're here to explain the traffic calming process for Sequoia Farms Drive. So first, we go over a couple of items before I begin. Please note that the session is being recorded. Please hold all questions until the end of presentation, and the instruction for how to ask your question will be provided after the presentation. And tonight we're here to explain the traffic calming process, provide an opportunity for community feedback, and answering any questions you might have. So let's begin with what traffic calming is. So generally, traffic calming is the installation of physical devices to reduce vehicle speed. These devices can be either vertical or horizontal. Vertical devices are driven over, such as speed hump showing up to the left, while you drive around horizontal devices, such as raised median island showing up to the right. Both types of devices make the road safer for both drivers and pedestrians. I do want you to know that during this process, we are not permitted to install stop signs. Here we have charts and images showing the effects of decreased speed. As speed decreases, visual acuity, field of vision, and depth perception increase. Also, with reduced speed, we come to significant reduction in the number and severity of crashes involving motor vehicles. So if you look at the slide here, we have the map of traffic calming projects throughout the county. There are over 200 projects resulting in more than 500 devices countywide. Every district has devices, and chances that you have driven over one is pretty high. So the upcoming program can be broken up into 5 steps. Step 1 is project initiation. Step 2, plan development. Step 3, community engagement. Step 4, ballot phase. And step 5, which is the final step, is project installation. So as mentioned earlier, all traffic calming projects are always community initiating. The process begins with a request from the community to the supervisor's office. Once the request received, we will first complete a basic eligibility review. Next, we'll conduct traffic study, and once it passes both the eligibility and traffic study, the community will then form a task force. There are eligibility requirements that need to be met, and they are: the road needs to be VDOT maintained road, have a 25 mile per hour speed limit, be functionally classified as local, collector, or arterial, and if it is collector or arterial, it needs to be residential street. There's also traffic study components. Here we have the traffic study results for Sequoia Farms Drive. For the volume criteria, we need between 500 to 6,000 vehicles in 24 hours, both directions combined. For this project, we had 2,307, so we met the volume criteria. For speed criteria, the 85th percentile of speed needs to be greater than or equal to 35 miles per hour. This means that 15% of vehicles need to be traveling at 35 miles or faster in at least one direction of travel. The speed that we found was 35 miles on the northbound and 35 on southbound, which means Sequoia Farms Drive met the speed criteria as well. So plan development is the second step. First, we will conduct a site visit in the field in order to develop a draft plan. Once we have the draft plan, we will meet with the task force to get feedback and then amend the plan if necessary. Once the task force is satisfied with the draft plan, homeowners directly adjacent to any proposed measures will need to sign off the placement of the device in order to move on to the next step. Here we have device placement requirements. Based on the guideline we need, minimum 300 feet between measures and from existing step conditions. We need minimum 150 feet from any intersections, minimum 150 feet for adequate sight distance with any device, and it has to be fit on the existing roadway. So we have to take into account any driveways, manholes, utilities, and we also count for the grade of the road. So based on those requirements, we were able to draft a plan and propose 2 raised crosswalks, 1 speed hump and 1 speed table, as you can see on the map here. And then addresses that are listed are the ones that need to sign off because the devices are adjacent to their homes. Here we have a graphic of speed hump. So it's going to be 12 feet long and 3 inches in the center. And in addition to speed hump, there will be a speed hump sign and the recommended 15 mph sign on each side. There will also be white chevrons on each traveling lane. Here you can see a graphic of speed table. So it's going to be 22 feet long versus 12 feet long of speed hump and 3 inches in the center. And in addition to that, there will be a speed hump sign and recommended 15 mph sign on each side. There will also be white chevrons on each traveling lane as well. Here you can see a graphic of Reed's crosswalk. So it's going to be 22 feet long, same as speed tables, and 3 inches in the center with visibility markings in the center, plus white chevrons on each side, as you can see. And in addition to that, there will be a speed hump sign and recommended 15 mph sign on each side. So in step 3, we have the community meeting, which is where we are here tonight. This is where we present the plan for the community to obtain feedback. Based on the feedback, the task force will decide whether to amend the plan or proceed to next phase. If the task force decides to move forward, we can move forward to the ballot phase. So each household in the ballot area will receive 1 vote. They will need to send it directly to the district supervisor's office. The ballot period will be open for a minimum of 3 weeks, and supervisor's office will tally the votes and notify the task force of the result. Here we have an example of the ballot. The proposed devices will be listed on the ballot, and the community will be voting for the entire plan. The task force here is responsible for distributing the ballot packages to everyone in the ballot area. So there are 3 ways to return your ballot by the deadline. One way is that you can mail the ballot. You can also hand deliver to the supervisor's office, or you can email it to the supervisor's office. Please do not return your ballot to the task force, and please use one of the methods listed above. So here you can see the ballot area map for Sequoia Farms Drive. So there are 222 ballots, and in order for the proposed plan to move forward, we will need greater than 50% of all households to vote in favor. And so we will need 112 yes votes. So if we get to the required number of yes votes, we can move on step 5, project installation, which is the final step. So traffic calming plan will be presented to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors for endorsement, and then the resolution will be sent to VDOT. FCDOT will work with Department of Public Works and Environmental Services to schedule installation. And finally, the traffic measures on the plan will be installed. So here is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. We are going to move on to the question answer sessions. You have 2 options. You can chat or speak. Once the chat item is activated on Teams, you can use it by typing your questions And if you want to speak, please click on raise your hand icon that you'll be unmuted once it's your turn. If you're on the phone, please push *5 to raise your hand. When it's your turn, the host will call on you to ask your question. You need to push *6 to unmute, and after you're finished, please push *5 to unraise your hand. Thank you very much.
Okay, we do have a written-in question from Renee. Would the SFOA task force get a copy of these slides?
So yeah, I mean, we had the slides available. I believe we have sent them to Mike Coyle at the supervisor's office. If not, then we'll have them over to him shortly. And Mike can send them out to the task force.
We have a raised hand from Renee. Renee, I'm going to send you a notification that allows you to unmute yourself. If you can unmute yourself, then you should be able to ask your question.
Okay, Renee, if you're not able to unmute, if you would like to go ahead and type your question in the chat, and we will try to answer it there. Oh, it looks like you might have unmuted. Yep, then it went back. If you would like, you can go ahead and type your question in the chat. Teams does seem to get a little glitchy on occasion, especially when it comes to the mute. But if you type it in the chat, we'll go ahead and try to answer it as best we can. And then if we want to move on to the next person who has his hand up.
Okay, Paul, I have sent you a notification that you should be able to unmute yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. You know, my biggest fear is that with the height of these, it might cause damage to some vehicles. But it said it was only 3 inches, so I don't see that as a concern. But I've also seen a lot of these installs, you know, maybe not VDOT, maybe other organizations go horribly wrong. What's the process look like if, you know, they screw up and we have to get it fixed? Is that something we can do timely, or are we kind of stuck with it for that 10-year window like the instruction says?
I'm not positive what you mean if they screw up. Are you talking about if they get the installation incorrect?
Yeah, it says it's only 3 inches high, but what if, you know, they're a little bit aggressive and, you know, it ends up being more like a speed bump rather than a speed table or something, and now it's a big bump and it scrapes on the bottom of vehicles.
So we have been doing these installations through the Department of Public Works for about the past 12 or 13 years, and they contract the work out. After the installation is done, either they will send staff out or we will send staff out with Department of Public Works to go out and measure the hump height when they're done, and the contractor will not get paid until the devices are installed correctly.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we have written in from Renee. What happens when the road is repaved, such as what happened at Cedar Break?
So I know that Cedar Break just got repaved and their devices were removed during that repaving process. So the VDOT oversees that repaving process, and they are going to have their contractor come back out and reinstall the devices. This happens quite frequently. It does happen. You know, there is a delay before the devices get reinstalled. Generally, the contractor is going to do it when they feel that it, kind of fits into their schedule. So there might be a little bit of delay before the devices go back in on Cedar Break, but they will go back in before the end of the year.
And Steve, if I can just add to that, similar this summer, Hollinger Avenue, a little north of Route 50, also had traffic calming devices, and they repaved the road and the devices were removed. It was probably 3, possibly more like 4 weeks, and then VDOT had their contractor crew come back and reinstall the devices.
Yeah, I mean, that time frame can vary a little bit. It kind of just depends on the contractor and where they are in their paving schedule.
Okay, I have another raised hand from the number ending in 6774. I'm going to send you a notification to let you unmute yourself.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we can
can.
hear you.
I was having trouble because I had called in rather than having the Microsoft Teams connect. So I apologize. This is Renee Gwynn, the task force team lead. There's been a little bit of concern from a homeowner within the community who is located on Glade Right Drive. Would there be an impact to traffic moving off of Sequoia Farms, heading across Flower Castle to go to Glade Right, down to Cedar Break, so they could try to avoid these devices? Would they be somebody that would be in the ballot area that would actually be impacted?
Well, I mean, if they do choose to do that, they are, making a number of different turns there to avoid those couple of devices, and they would still also drive over, the two on Cedar Break. So it does seem unusual that, somebody would choose to make that many turning movements to avoid, a couple of devices. So I know that northern part of that street that you just referenced is in the ballot area. The southern part was excluded because of its immediate access going out on Cedar Break down to Braddock.
So that would be those within the ballot area on Glade Right between Firefox and Cedar Break would probably not be in the ballot area.
Those north, correct. So the ones that are on Glade Right between Firefox and Cedar Break are not included, just like the folks on Cedar Break aren't, because they do have access going out onto Braddock Road, going down Cedar Break. If they were going down Glade Right, I mean, again, you're making 2 extra turns to avoid, I think, 1 device at that point. So it just seems, like an unlikely displacement of traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, currently we don't have anything written in the chat and no hands raised. We will give you some time to either type in your questions or comments. Okay, and we have a question written in from Nicole. How soon can we start the ballot?
So after this meeting, the community task force will probably need to reconvene and determine if they want to go ahead and proceed to the ballot phase. If they do, then we'll be able to send some templates out to them. They'll need to modify the templates to reflect this particular project. We'll review the modifications that they make, and then they'll need to produce the ballots and distribute. So, I mean, generally that's going to take, a handful of weeks, anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks if they decide to immediately go to the ballot process. So, I mean, you could actually see ballots coming out in the next, 2 or 3 weeks.
We also have a question from the number ending in 6512. I'll send you a mic request.
Can you tell me how many people are on this call?
We have 16 community members attending.
Good enough.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and we have written in from Kent. Kent asks, can you make the map visible, please? So I think we're talking about the device map. Banaz, if you want to go ahead and open the device map.
And was there a particular question about the device locations, the device types chosen?
Not written in, but if you still have some further questions after looking at the map, feel free to write them in or raise your hand. We can move on to Renee. Renee has written in the task force distributes the ballots, but the affected homeowners send the ballots back directly. I'm not sure if that's a question. I'm thinking it is. Steve, if you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so the task force will be responsible for the manufacturing and distribution of the ballots. Then the person receiving the ballot will need to send them directly back to the supervisor's office. We can't have the task force collecting the ballots themselves. So they can be mailed back to the supervisor's office. They can be hand delivered to the supervisor's office, or they can be electronically delivered, either by email or a text message of the photo of your ballot. So you do have a couple of options there. Thank you, Banaz, for pulling that screen up.
Okay. And then we have written in from Harold. What's the earliest likely date, if everything goes well, that this might be installed?
So we'd probably be looking at spring next year. So we might be looking at like a March installation at this point if everything is successful.
Steve, let me just add a little bit more to that is that whenever we go to the ballot phase and the ballots come back to Supervisor Smith's office, we tabulate them, and assuming that enough yes votes came in, then our office contacts the county's Department of Transportation and lets them know that we had a successful ballot for this project. Then they have to work through their process. It has to be to go to the Board of Supervisors, and it just goes on their agenda as an administrative item, which they would approve. And after that approval takes place, then our county's Department of Transportation works with the Public Works folks to get the devices installed.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, there are a couple of steps left even after the ballot is successful, and it does take a little bit of time to work through those steps.
We have another question from the number ending in 3596. I'll send you a mic request.
I wanted to know why are the homes on Cedar Break being excluded? Especially those that are at the end of Cedar Break, close to Sequoia Farms Drive.
Because they do have direct access to Braddock Road, so that kind of gets them out into the transportation network for Fairfax County. And, we feel that they, if they choose not to drive over those devices, then they have an opportunity not to. So we just try to focus that ballot area on the people that, really don't have too many other options other than to drive on the portion of roadway that we're working on to access their homes.
Okay.
I have another raised hand from Renee. Renee, I'll send you a mic request.
Are you able to hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Okay, I know one of the questions was approximately how many participants are on the call. That was from our one of our task force members. We did send out the virtual flyer by mail to all of the Sequoia Farms homeowners, over 300 folks. I think there was 380, as well as posting on our Sequoia Farms Facebook page, sending out an email, and also posting on the Sequoia Farms website. Given that the task force now has to make sure we get ballots to the affected homeowners on the ballot area, what methods can we utilize based on experience in order to get people to respond to the ballots? Because if we need 222 ballots, approximately half of them have to be in the affirmative. What's our methodology to make sure that these folks return their ballots?
One thing, it is a fairly significant ballot area, so we can leave the balloting period open for a longer time. So if you would like, we can, extend the ballot period to, 4 or 5 weeks if that's what the task force would like to see happen. And then you can reach out to the supervisor's office and, kind of track how many ballots have come in. And, Mike would probably be the person responding, and he would give you a total of how many, ballots he's received. And, if you feel that, you need a greater return from the ballots issued, then you can use whatever, forms of communication you have available to, notify the people in the ballot area that it'd be helpful if they would respond. And, whatever forms of communication you have available, we would encourage that you use those to reach out to the folks in the ballot area. During the process, before the process, you don't necessarily have to immediately go to the ballot. So if you want to, let the community know this is going on, let the community know the ballots are coming. If you have a newsletter, like you said, if you have like any kind of email chain, put the word out. Pick your date, let people know ahead of time that the ballot is coming.
And then give them a due date as far as when they need to bring it back, send it back.
Yes. So one of the things that will happen, there will be a cover letter, and in that cover letter and also in the ballot itself, there will be a due date on that ballot and cover letter. And so when that date does come, then the supervisor's office is not going to receive any more ballots for this particular project. So it will be on the ballot, and we have to adhere to that date.
And are those ballots by the task force given out to the balloting area? Is that something that can be mailed by the supervisor's office because they have the names of the homeowners, or is that something we also, as the task force, are responsible for doing, either passing them out by hand or mailing them?
Yes, so the task force will be responsible for the manufacture and distribution of the ballots. So you can pass them out by hand if you have, enough people to do that. It's a fairly sizable area that we're talking about, or you can mail them out. And, on the mailer, you can include postage. Now we are receiving ballots electronically. The included postage might not necessarily be as helpful as it used to be. I don't know, Mike, if you would like to weigh in on what percentage of ballots you're receiving by email at this point, as opposed to being mailed back.
Yeah, so I'll just say, Renee, one, our OT staff, they'll provide us with an Excel spreadsheet that will have all the addresses that the ballots will need to go to. So the task force will have that, so they'll know who they need to be sent to or delivered to. I would say probably the last traffic calming project we did, which was earlier this year, it was probably about 50% sent by email, maybe slightly less than 50% folks returned it by email.
So there probably still is a value in including postage on the delivery that you send out. So that ballot is generally, it's like a trifold. So the ballot is on one side, and then on the other side is the address of the supervisor's office. The person receiving it would just fill out the ballot, fold it up, tape it up, put it back in the mail. If you want to put a stamp on that, you can do that.
It's helpful to know. That was one of the ways that we sent out the advertisement for this virtual meeting to our homeowners, hoping that we would have had a little bit more participation from the homeowners. So there seems to be sometimes a challenge getting more input to our homeowner community meetings as far as when our board meets or if there's an annual meeting. So we're just trying to determine the best methodology to reach the participants.
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this for a number of years, and it is interesting to see the level of response. Generally, people do take interest when there's something being done on the road that they live on or live near. So hopefully we will see a positive return rate from the ballots issued.
Okay, thank you. We do have a written-in question from Harold. If the task force is responsible for putting together the ballot and cover letter, how can we handle non-English reading recipients?
So if requested, we can do a translation in different languages. So we would need to have that request sent in before the ballots are manufactured. So or put together. But we can do a translation when requested.
Okay, so there's no more hands raised or questions. We'll give it a couple more minutes to have people, give them time to type in their questions or if they have any questions or comments.
And Banaz, if you want to go to the contact page, we can pull that up. So if people do have questions following tonight's meeting, they can reach out to FCDOT staff at dotinfo@fairfaxcounty.gov. And in the subject line, just type in Sequoia Farms Drive traffic calming, or you can call 703-877-5600 and ask to talk to somebody about the Sequoia Farms Drive traffic calming project. Oops, I think we forgot to update this other slide here. So we do have, go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say, Steve, if anybody has any questions also about the project, they can contact, Supervisor Smith's office, and it's, our email address is sully@fairfaxcounty.gov, and our phone number is 703-814-7100, and we're also more than happy to try to answer anybody's questions.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, and as Steve did mention earlier, we did send a copy of this presentation to Mike. So if you want a copy of the presentation given, please feel free to reach out to Mike. We do have it recorded, but unfortunately at this time, we do not have a way to share it with people that are outside and not attending the meeting. We're still trying to figure out that kink. But we do have the presentation, and like Steve said, feel free to reach out if you think of any further questions.
And Mike, do you have anything else to add?
No, the only thing I was just going to add is one of the questions that is typically asked that wasn't is, can snowplows go over the devices? And the answer to that question is yes. The way the plows work, they're able to come up to the device and raise over top of it and plow the road. And of course, the folks who live in the community who've traversed, Cedar Break, during the snowstorms have seen that they've been able to plow over top of them.
Okay, and we have written in here from Renee, as can emergency vehicles? That's the question.
Yes, emergency vehicles will, of course, need to slow down to traverse over them. We're generally seeing about a 3 to 10 second delay, depending on the device that the emergency vehicle is traversing and the emergency vehicle type. So there is some delay in their response time. And we're seeing, like I said, about 3 to 10 seconds, depending on the device that they're traversing and also the vehicle type that's going over the device. And so, as we said earlier, after tonight's meeting, the task force will probably want to reconvene, make the determination if they want to go ahead and go to the ballot phase. And when they would want to go to the ballot phase, they can contact the supervisor's office whenever they've made a decision. And we will get out templates to work off of as far as putting together the ballot packet information. And again, like I said, if you feel you want to take a little bit of time and try to, send out any forms of communication to the community at large and let them know that a ballot might be coming soon for consideration of devices on this section of Sequoia Farms, you can do that also. Obviously, the more effort you make or the different ways that you try to let people know, the most likely that they will participate in this process. So that is kind of important. There's no reason to rush at this point if you feel that you want to take a little time to try to inform more of the community members of what's going on.
And as you just commented, Steve, I'd like to input, we are also coming on holiday season. So if the task force would like to keep that in mind also for balloting, just to keep in mind that the holiday season is coming, you're creeping on us. So it might be something to take into consideration. Okay, we currently have nothing written in and no hands raised. Renee types in, thank you, and I have no other questions at this time. Thank you, Renee. And we have Kent that has written in a question. How do these devices affect parking?
So the speed hump and the speed table are not going to impact parking. We do have 2 raised crosswalks that are being proposed, and there will be new crosswalk locations, and you can't park within a certain distance of a crosswalk. So there will be some parking restriction associated with those 2 devices. So whenever, you know, a crosswalk is installed, we need to give adequate sight distance to that crossing area.
But Steve, I'll just add, if somebody wants to park on a speed hump, they can. It is permissible.
Right. So there's no restriction as far as the speed hump or the speed table. They are allowed to park on it. They're allowed to park on the approaches to it. It's just the raised crosswalk that, one, you can park or block that crossing area. And then also you need to, park a certain distance away on the approach to allow safe distance.
I see a hand raised from Paul. Paul, I will. Oh.
Yeah, thanks. I didn't realize that there was to Kevin's point, the restriction on parking near the one with the crosswalk. Have we polled the people in the houses there, and are they okay with taking away street parking? I know several of those houses regularly have cars street parked, and we take away parking spots. I think we ought to consult them first before we push ahead with a crosswalk there.
Right. So the one area is in the utility easement. So there is like no direct frontage at that one crosswalk location. And then at the southern location, it is adjacent to the pool. And then on the other side, the homeowner was asked to sign off on an adjacent property form, informing him of what device type. And I do think we actually talked to that person when we were out marking it in the field. So
Okay.
they are
As a
aware.
homeowner that wasn't consulted on community changes, I'm a little bit sensitive to that topic, so I wanted to make sure.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have anything in the chat at the moment and no hands raised. Looks like someone is typing in, so we'll give them a couple more minutes. Okay, Renee says the task force can follow up with the homeowners, 2 homeowners affected. Thank you, Renee.
Okay, and did we have one more question coming in the chat, or was that the?
Nope, we don't have any more right now.
All right, if we want to go back to that slide, Banaz, as we sign off again, if people do have any questions following this meeting, they can reach out to Fairfax County DOT at the address that we had up earlier, dotinfo@fairfaxcounty.gov, or our phone number is 703-877-5600. You can also reach the Sully office at sully@fairfaxcounty.gov and 703-814-7100. And if we don't have any more questions, and I think we're going to go ahead and sign off for tonight, we have sent the slides out to the Sully office. Mike should be able to make those available to the task force, and they can be shared out with any community member requesting them. Okay. All right, Mike, any final words again?
No, just real quick, I appreciate everybody's participation, and again, both our OT folks and our office are more than happy to answer any questions, and again, continue to work with you all on this traffic calming project. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike, and everybody have a good night and be safe. Thank you.